Hey guys, welcome back to another computer application tutorial. In this tutorial we are going to be looking at attributes, and we're going to be able to start adding a personal touch to our web pages so they don't look so plain. Please stay tuned. Alright, so we're going to start with a presentation, and in this presentation we're going to be looking at what is an attribute, where do we place the attribute, what is the structure we need to remember when writing an attribute, and lastly, HTML is not meant for styling. We will get to that last point and I'll explain what I mean there. Alright, so what is an attribute? Let's look at other words that might mean the same. So attribute is two words that I've thought of. The first one is features, and the second one is characteristics. Now you might still be a little confused as to what I'm talking about, but if I have to show you this photo of my wife and I, you will see that we don't look the same because we have different characteristics, we have different features. And where she's got long blonde hair, I've got short, or almost baldish, but short, darker hair. Where I've got a beard, she doesn't, thank goodness. So there are certain features that you would tell her apart from me. And the same thing applies to tags. So if we're looking at, for example, the body tag, we can change the color of the background in one tag, and that page will look different to another page where we might change it to a completely different color. So those are attributes, and that's what makes the tag unique and different from other tags. Okay, that's basically it there. So where do we place the attributes? Now I want to do a little experiment with you quickly, so I need you to follow these steps in order. If you want to actually go and grab follow the instructions and actually go and do it, then you can pause the video, but if you want to just in your mind follow on. So get a blue pen, then you're going to get a white page, and then I want you to draw a square on the page. So basically at this point you have a blue square on a white page, right? So if I then tell you to make sure the square is red and on a yellow page, you're going to tell me to get lost because you've already drawn a blue square on a white page. So the order that we give instructions to the browser to read and to display a page is very important. So the attribute needs to be placed in the opening tag so that the browser knows how the element needs to be formatted before it displays the element. So if it is placed in the closing tag, the element will be displayed before the browser knows how you want it to be displayed. It will not get changed because the browser already displayed the element. Okay, let's have a look now at where we place it. So you'll see that I've got a P for a paragraph tag, and you'll see it over here, the P, and then you'll see the closing paragraph tag at the end here. So now we need to put the attribute into the opening tag, and you'll see that there is the attribute. Alright, so the structure is very basic. You always start with the attribute name, then you've got an equal sign, and then you've actually got the value, and the value should always be enclosed in those quotations that you see there. Every attribute that you will be using is going to be set up like this. You're going to have the name of the attribute, you're going to have the equal sign, and then you're going to have the actual value. Alright, now we're going to get to this last point, and this isn't really that important for the CAT students that are busy doing CAT and learning HTML because of their CAT exam. But I would like to just emphasize this so that you understand, and going forward, if ever you leave school and want to do something with web development, you know that what we're teaching you, even though it's not wrong, it's just not common practice, it's not done. So let's just get into it. So firstly, HTML is used to structure web pages. Web developers don't format or style their pages with HTML. They use CSS, which is cascading style sheets, to format and style the elements on a web page. A lot of the attributes you're going to see me use have been deprecated. Now, deprecated is a word that's come from Latin, which means to pray against. And normally when you pray against something, it's because it's evil and you want to pray against it. But I guarantee you, I'm not teaching you anything that is evil in the sense of it coming from the devil, but it is not common practice, and it is not the best way to do something, and that's why we call it, or we say that they've been deprecated. Now, if we don't know CSS and we want to actually create pages that still are stylish, we're going to have to use these attributes that have been deprecated. But if you are going to plan on going further and wanting to do web development, you will need to learn how to write CSS, so you develop your pages using the best styling method available. Alright, so now that we know that, we're going to have to use these tags that isn't common practice because we don't know CSS yet. If you do plan on going further, you will study CSS, you will learn how to code with it, and then you'll be able to style your page in a different sheet, and you won't have to do it in your HTML code, which was primarily made just for the structure. But since we don't know, we're going to have to do it this way. Alright guys, that was the presentation. Let us get into our code. So I've already got my browser open here, and you'll see this is the browser that I worked with in the last video where we were doing multi-lists. And then this is the code. All I did is added a heading, level 1, my list of animals. So what I'm going to do now is just make a few little changes in the attributes so you can see how we can change the default values. So for example, H1, if you look at the browser, you will see that the heading has been left aligned. So that is the default value for the alignment when you put a heading in. Now if I want to change this and center it, I'll need to go into the opening tag, create an attribute. This particular one is going to be called align, and then remember the order, the structure at least. We're going to have the name, the equals, and then the value. So here we go. So inside here in H1, this is the opening tag. Remember, we have to do it in the opening side because before this my list of animals gets displayed on the page, the browser needs to know how we want to display it. So we want to display it in the center. We can't tell the browser to display it and then only afterwards tell it, listen, put it in the center. We're going to have the same situation about that example I did with the blue square on a white page, wanting it to be a red square on an orange page. It's just not going to work. So we have to start in the opening tag. We're going to just push a space over there to move that angled bracket away a little bit. The attribute name is what needs to come first, and it is align. And then I'm going to type in equals, and I'm going to open up two quotation marks like that. Now that I've got that done, I'm going to put the attribute value center, and once that is all done, I can click on save or just use the Control S and then open up my browser, and then I need to refresh it. So once I've done that, you can see that the heading now has moved to the center of my web page. Alright, so already you can start seeing how we can customize the page to make it look more personalized and kind of add ourselves to our web pages. Let's carry on and have a look at what else we can do here. So the OL by default was an ordered list, and you saw that it was numbered 1, 2, 3. Let's say we want to change it to letters. So what we're going to do is, in the beginning, the opening tag, as you can see, that's the tag that I'm in at the moment because the closing tag is at the bottom. You'll see it goes purple at the bottom. There it is. Alright, and inside here, I'm going to start by giving the attribute name. In this situation now, the name of the attribute is called type equals. And now inside the quotation marks, I'm going to type just the capital A, and so it knows that I want it in capitals from A. Alright, so Control and S will save it for me. And let me just zoom in a little bit for you. So pay attention now to the numbers here, 1, 2, 3. As I refresh, you will see it now goes to ABC. Right, and one more thing I want to do now. Let's say I want to change the bullets. So now the bullets you saw, there were little circles, a little hollow circle. So what we're going to do now is also use type. Oops. And I'm going to say equals. So it's the same thing as the ordered list, but instead of me now saying A or an I for Roman numerals, I'm going to pick the shape that I want. So let's say I want a square. So there we go. Control and S will save the page. Okay, I'm going to just zoom in so we can see it properly. So these little circles here, watch what happens to them now when I refresh. And there we get the square. Now it only happens to the first list because remember I only typed it into the first list's opening tag. If you want it in the others, you can copy the code like we've done before and then move on. Alright, so I'm going to add a horizontal rule now, which is a line underneath the heading, separating my heading from the list. Then we're going to play around with the line a little bit with the attributes, and then finally I'm going to change the color of the body, the page. Alright, so the first thing was the horizontal rule, which is HR, and I wanted that between the heading and the list. So over here I'm just going to put here HR, and remember to close it because it's a self-closing tag. Control S will save it just so you can see what the default looks like, and there is my default. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to play around with the color of the line. I'm also going to play around with the size of the line and the width. Alright, so the names I just gave you, the color, the size and the width, are actually the names of the attributes. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I need to come to the opening part of this tag. Remember, this is a self-closing tag, so it does close here. And remember, I told you we need to make sure that we put the attribute in the opening part of the tag. So in this case, it's going to be here, and the / then comes at the end because that's the closing. So the first thing we said we're going to be changing is the color equals, and I'm going to make the color blue. Alright, there's the color blue. Control and S will save it. And refresh. Let me just get closer. Here we go, refresh, and you see the color changes to blue. Alright, and just because we have one attribute doesn't mean we can only have one. We can keep adding other attributes, and the way we do it is once we finish the one, we just hit the space and we add the next attribute. So the next one I wanted to change would be the size, and let's say I want the size to be 25. So 25, if I just put a number like that, the browser is going to interpret that as pixels, so it's going to do 25 pixels for me, and that's going to change the thickness of the line. So Control and S, and let's quickly go have a look at what it looks like. If I zoom in and refresh, there we can see the line has gotten thicker. And let's say now I want to change the width. I don't want it to go all the way from one side of my page to the other, and I want it just to kind of sit in the middle. I'm going to change that. Now what I'm going to do is still the same thing, click add another one, so space, and I'm just going to add the next name, which is width, then equals, and then inside here now what I'm going to do, because different devices that view these pages have different size screens, so a nice way to be able to have your web page looking similar across all the different devices is by using a percent. So I'm going to say I want the width to be 50%, and what I'm actually telling the browser to do is create the width 50% of my screen. So however big my screen is, it's going to calculate 50% and just draw it that way. If I'm on a laptop, it will look similar to whether I'm on the cell phone or a TV screen, because 50%, it will make it look 50% of the screen, which should kind of make my page look similar throughout the devices. Control S. Okay, now I'm going to leave it full view so you can see what happens here. My screen currently, the browser is open from there to there. Okay, when I refresh, look what happens. And there it goes, 50% of this screen that you see the browser open in. If I have to maximize my screen, you will see the line does get bigger and it fits that screen now. Alright guys, so that's that. And the last thing I wanted to do is change the color. So right now the default color for body tag is white. I'm going to change it to quite a nice color. It's called tomato. So inside the body tag, I'm going to open it up. The attribute name for this is going to be called BG color. One thing I need to point out, I don't know if you've noticed, I've been spelling color the American way. There's no U in it. You have to spell it the way the Americans do, because well, it was an American that came up with this coding language, so we have to use that attribute name. Equals, and then inside here I'm going to type in the color I want. This is tomato. You can go to an HTML website where they're going to give you a whole list of different colors that you can use. W3 Schools is quite a nice one to go and have a look at. But yeah, there's the color. Control and S to save, and then I'm going to come in here and refresh, and you'll see, there we go. Alright guys, so that is it for the attributes. Now that we know how to use the attributes, there are certain tags that we can learn that will help us to add images, because we need to know the attributes in order to do that. We can add hyperlinks, and there's a whole lot of other things we can do, even use the font tag to change the color of the font. That's all coming up. Please stay tuned, and till next time, bye for now.